The AI revolution is fundamentally reshaping the business landscape, ushering in a new era of data-driven insights, personalization, and automation. For the C-suite, this shift signifies both an opportunity to harness AI's transformative potential to remain competitive and drive growth. I'm Leandro Perez, Vice President and CMO of Salesforce Asia Pacific, and I'm excited to be hosting another Salesforce Executive Conversation, where senior leaders and thought leaders from around the world join me to exchange their valuable insights and perspectives. We've already had so many incredible conversations. If you've missed an episode, you can catch up at sfdc.co/conversations. Today, I'm coming to you from our brand new offices, Salesforce Tower, Sydney, and I'm joined by Patrick Stokes, Executive Vice President, Product and Industries Marketing at Salesforce. Patrick has over 15 years of experience in product management, and throughout the course of his career has worked in product leadership roles in both startups and established industry players. At Salesforce, he spearheaded the Customer 360 and Multicloud Integration Strategy. Welcome, Patrick.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So look, Patrick, just to get going, we have a few icebreakers. When you were growing up, a lot of technology back in your age. Anything that you were most excited about or its potential?
So I grew up in the 90s. Formative part of my childhood was in the 90s. So for me, it was like computers or the internet. Yeah. So I grew up on a small little town on the Jersey Shore, kind of right on the beach. And when you grow up on the Jersey Shore, there's really only one job that you get in high school or when you're 14, and that's lifeguard.
We get that here.
Yeah, so you get up on the stand and you sit there, and so I got that as my first job, and I lasted about 4.5 minutes on the first day of the summer. Memorial Day is when we kick off the summer there. And I just can't sit. And so I went and got a job in this little computer repair store, this tiny little store where people would bring in their early PCs, 386s, 486s, and repair them. And I used to just go in the back room and source all of these old parts because I wanted to build my own computer. And then I would take it home and I would try to run video games on it. So just try to put enough power into that to run some of the early versions of Doom and Wolfenstein and Quake, and that's really where I never looked back. That's where I got my start.
Love this story. It's incredible, and I can see so many shared things in our past, so something to talk about. Patrick, you've had a fantastic career in tech. In fact, when I think you joined Salesforce in 2012, you were the Chief Product Officer of Buddy Media. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you landed in that role?
Yeah, I maybe had a little bit of an interesting career journey. I came out of college in upstate New York, right next to where I went to school. There was a big IBM plant, so my first job was writing code on the S390 mainframe. Big plant in Poughkeepsie, New York, but there was like 11 people there. It wasn't a good time for IBM, so I pulled out of that and went and started a company of my own. Building Facebook applications. The Facebook kind of platform had just started then, and met some people through that, and then started a company called Buddy Media, which was a social media management company. So we made it possible for brands to kind of build a presence inside of Facebook. At the time, that was new.
Cutting edge.
That was all new. Twitter was just barely there, and Facebook. You'd have your presence there, and you'd run your Super Bowl commercial, and at the end it'd say, visit us on facebook.com/Coke instead of Coke.com, right? You'd go to the Facebook location. So we built that up into a pretty nice little business in New York, and then 2011, 2012, the social media companies started getting swallowed up by what I thought was a huge company, Salesforce. At the time when I joined, we were maybe 3,500 people, and quite a bit bigger today. But yeah, that's the career.
Love that. Fascinating story from tech to leadership, and then coming back in being an entrepreneur, I guess, inside a company. I love that. So look, I guess a continuation of that is you spearheaded our Customer 360 platform efforts at Salesforce. Tell us a little bit about that project for the folks that may not know about that, and also its importance to our customers here at Salesforce.
Sure. So if you kind of pay attention to the run that we've had here at Salesforce and our mission, which you'll hear Mark and me and other executives talk about all the time of we're here to help our customers connect with their customers. And so when you look at Salesforce, we've been rounding out our portfolio of products in kind of the different functional areas of a business, right? So sales and service and marketing and commerce. And the early part of my career at Salesforce, coming in through social, was largely on the marketing side, right? So we brought in ExactTarget, our friends from Indianapolis, and started our marketing cloud. And while that story is there, right? Okay, we have your sales function and your service function and your marketing function. As a technologist, I really started to look at it and say, we can do this better. You know, having the applications and having customers on these applications is one thing, but it would be great if they were really integrated together. And if we're gonna integrate them all together, the way that we should do that is we should integrate within the context of the customer. Let's really focus on delivering a unified customer identity and profile across all of our applications. That's what we're about, that's our mission. So that was the spearhead of the Customer 360 project on the technology side, and also I think has become part of our kind of corporate narrative and our mission of what we're all about.
I think what's fascinating about that is that it's an ongoing project, right? Because as new technologies evolve, which is where we find ourselves today, right? With like AI, no one probably thought back then the use of that for the current use cases with AI, but it's so critical there. Can you share a little bit about the connection between the two?
Well, it's certainly an ongoing project. I'll say, as we've gone through the years and you bring this to customers and you go to Dreamforce and you talk to the press and our analysts, every once in a while they'll say, well, it sounds like that's what you've been saying, and it's like, yeah, yes. that's the point. That's our mission, and we're on that mission. And every year we're going to try to make it a little bit better. It's not very much unlike Intel or NVIDIA, who every year their GPUs and CPUs, they just get a little bit faster, right? They're just
same mission,
though. Same mission. The mission is the same, and they're just and every so often they. In Intel or NVIDIA, there's going to be a step function change where they figure something out, and it doesn't just get a little bit faster, it gets a lot faster, right? And I think that's what we're in here for with, not just with AI, but with data as well. So, part of our journey in this process is as we integrated these products, we really realized that a big part of what we need to do is we need to not only be able to unify our customer data, but connect more data about how our customers are using their products, right? So many of our customers' products are fully digital today. They're spitting out all of this information and signals about how they're using it. Think about, the electronics we have in our cars now, spitting out all of this telemetry data. All of that is incredibly useful data, and if we can bring that into a platform like Salesforce, we can use that data. We can trigger automations and other marketing or sales events, or proactively service our customers, et cetera. And then when you put that together, when you have that data in place, now you really can start to look at AI and say, how can we use all of this data to fuel the AI models of the future? How can we build new models, and how can we connect that data to those AI models?
So talking about AI, clearly buzzword right now. We've been talking about it for almost 10 years here at Salesforce. You're also out there talking to many customers. Any early use cases you're hearing that are just, wow, like that's a cool use case, whether it's an industry use case or for a particular customer that you've seen that's fascinating or impressed you?
I think we're seeing two types of use cases probably right now. We're seeing, I don't have a great word for this yet, I probably should, but we're seeing the kind of micro use cases of there's a thing that I do in my day, and I might do it 5 times a day, I might do it 100 times a day. If you're a salesperson, for example, you can imagine sending quite a few outbound communications or emails a day. AI is a fantastic, especially generative AI, is a fantastic use case for those types of micro moments. I mentioned earlier, I kind of started my interest in the technology space through video games, and in video games, there's always this concept every time they release a new version of the video game. In the release notes, you can always find something called quality of life updates, which sounds ridiculous, right? Like, as a video game, how is it improving your quality of life? Well, if you think about playing a video game, some of those games you might be sitting there playing 8, 9 hours a day. You shouldn't be, but maybe you
Tell
are.
my kids that.
And so small little mild improvements to the things that you're doing in those video games can really add up to a better quality game. And the same is true in your day-to-day work life if you have to repeat certain steps over and over again. So we're seeing lots of those in things like outbound emails and service replies and the like. But what we're also seeing is more really transformative types of use cases. So service is an excellent example of this, where we can start moving into semi-autonomous, maybe even fully autonomous interactions between AIs and customers. AIs that are capable of going out and performing not just little micro actions, but many, many micro actions that add up to many, many hours and many, many costs within an organization. So I think we're seeing customers that really are experimenting across that entire spectrum. And that's what's so neat about this generative AI movement, is it really does cover the whole spectrum.
What I love about that, firstly, we coined a term here. I think that this, maybe we can document, that was the first time we heard that here, quality of life and micro use cases.
Well, it goes back to like Doom release notes in 1994.
Hey, inspired from many, many ways. But
There you
also, the two forms there is something that could impact an individual,
Yeah.
and then something that could impact an organization, which I think brings everything from the CEO down to the individual contributor and excites them. So I think that's really powerful in this movement. Now, obviously, in times like this, we as technologists and companies get very excited about the new technology, the potential, but it doesn't come without some potential risks as well. And so data privacy comes to mind, security comes to mind. How are we thinking about that at Salesforce, and what are we doing to ensure that's in place there for our customers?
Well, at Salesforce, it's kind of impossible for us not to think about this. And I know that may sound like a platitude or something, but when we say trust is our number one value, we really mean it. And that value is almost a virus. It's a positive virus, not a negative virus, but it's almost a virus in everything that we do. So when we're building, when we're designing our applications or the architectural components of our platform, everyone in that part of the organization, in the research and development of that organization, is thinking with trust as in the front of their mind. And with AI, I don't even think we fully recognized how important that was going to be early on, but because of our natural kind of attempt to bring trust in, I think we really found something. The example I'll give you is the difference between data in a database versus data in an AI model, and a large language model specifically, is data in a database has a location, right? You choose where to store it. You choose the database, you choose the table, you choose the field. That location basically becomes coordinates, and on top of those coordinates, we can install controls, access permissions, governance. I can say, I have access to this data, and you don't. If you try to get it, we don't trust you, you're not going to get access to the data. But when we put data in a large language model, we don't really put the data there. It doesn't get stored in a particular location the same way you don't store data in your head. If I asked you what an apple is, you could tell me, but you don't know
It's
where.
somewhere in there.
It's somewhere. Well, the apple isn't even somewhere in there. What's in there is mathematical properties about an apple, right? Your brain has come to recognize that it's round and that it's red and sometimes it's green, and the combination of those mathematical properties, when your eye takes in light from the visual of an apple, your brain puts it together and goes apple,
Yes.
right? But the problem with that is we can't control what you pull out. So if I teach you as a human, or teach a large language model what an apple is, I can't necessarily control the way you or the large language model talk about an apple. The same way, if I told you a secret, I can't really guarantee that you're going to keep that secret, right? A large language model is very much the same. So what we had to do was figure out a way to take the context of our business and give it to the large language model in a way where we could ask a question about our business and provide the relevant context that would help it ask that question, but prevent the large language model from learning all of the data that was in that question. So it's kind of like asking a question to a human being off the street, giving them a bunch of context to help you ask the question, but you only ask it to human beings that have amnesia. They
it's
forget
like the
everything.
Men in Black, you know.
Yeah, the zap, and then they
yeah.
dememorize you. Yeah, so we had to design a way to do that with large language models, and we created a capability, or a set of capabilities that we call the Einstein trust layer that really enables that to be reductive.
So obviously there's the risks and concerns, but then some of these things are ethical questions, like should we do something, or should the AI be able to answer that question? How are we thinking about the ethical implications of AI?
Well, it's right at the top of mind as well. There's the should question, there's the can question. We're starting with a set of guiding principles that are kind of guiding the way we build, and not just build, but release the technology into the hands of our customers. There's probably quite a few things technologically that we could do and be relatively out in front, but we don't feel comfortable fully doing yet. So we're building protections into our technology to look for things like toxicity and bias.
What do those mean? Maybe you might explain
Yeah,
that.
so toxicity just means you might ask a large language model a question, and it gives you what we would call a toxic answer. Your kids probably know what that means, right? On the internet, it just means like you get a nasty answer back from your large language model, and if you're maybe in the context of writing an email to your customer, you don't it's not what you want, right? Or bias. So there's a lot of inherent bias that exists in some of these models. They've been trained on the broad internet. The broad internet can be a pretty toxic and biased place. So we have to figure out how to detect that. And we can detect that in two ways. One, we can use technology to do it. It's actually a fascinating world of actually training a large language model to detect toxicity and bias from another large language model. Yes, exactly. Using AI to keep the AI safe, which is a bit of a that'll
Inception
you can
moment,
go
right?
you can go pretty far with that. But the other way we can do it is by, at least for the time being, and we don't know how long this will be, we can keep a human in the loop. So most of what we're delivering to our customers right now is a generative feature that will generate some sort of output, but a human being has to, quote unquote, press a button in order to move forward with that output.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of quality control, especially if the use case relates to a brand, and like you mentioned, whether it's an email going out there representing a brand or a copy, I think it's critical.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is moving fast. We didn't know maybe everything we know now even 3-4 months ago, right? And so as this continues to evolve, what trends or emerging technologies do you believe will have the most impact? We have folks that are trying to keep up during this pace.
Yeah, I have what might be an interesting answer here. I think the industry right now is maybe paying a little bit too much attention to the models themselves. So we're looking at these large language models. They all tout how many billions of parameters they have and what they've been trained on and what they can do, and now they generate images, and we're really looking at the models. And the models will continue to get better, and the research will continue to happen, the science will continue to happen, and it'll be very exciting. But I think the really interesting part of this technology space, and frankly, I think where a lot of the money and the new companies and the new capabilities will emerge is from the technology stack that surrounds the model. The way I like to describe this is very few people know who invented TCP/IP or DNS, right? And these are the foundational protocols of the internet. They gave rise to basically a whole new world. They changed the world, these two and a few other protocols. Nobody has any idea who invented them, and those individuals are not rich men. They have Wikipedia pages, but they're like this long, right? But everybody knows who Marc Andreessen is, and that's because Marc Andreessen built one of the first browsers and brought it to the people. What he did was he connected this new technology capability to human beings and to businesses, and that's where I think we're really going to start to see interesting things happen. As organizations like Salesforce and others figure out ways to safely and ethically connect business context to large language models to produce some sort of output that saves time and saves money, I think that complete stack all around the large language model itself, all the things around it is where people should be looking right now. And I don't think they are.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating time, and yeah, like you said, in these big shifts, people go to the shiny object, but usually it's the picks and shovels, right?
Yeah,
Those providers.
It's a good way
there.
to put it. Yeah. Yep.
Now, we've heard you say that AI is the big pivot, and so during this time, how can leaders foster a culture of innovation and ensuring they're adopting AI into their companies?
Yeah, well, I think they have to do it themselves.
Okay.
I've been going around kind of describing what I would call an imperative. I think we have, as leaders and especially as technologists in this space, I think we have an imperative to go start playing and learning with this ourselves, and there is no shortage of information out there right now. This is an incredible world we live in where the second things happen, there are hundreds of hours of content freely available on YouTube to go start learning and trying new things. And so just get started. If you're waiting for somebody to come and tell you how this works or why you should use it, you're probably going to wait right past the point of potentially being disruptive. And I just think we all have this imperative to become more intellectually curious. And this is a hard one because it's artificial intelligence, it's neural networks and transformers. I mean, most average people don't know how these work. I don't really truly know how these things work, but I can play with it. It's relatively inexpensive to play with, and so that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing I would say is bring people to you. So what we're seeing some of our customers doing, and what I love to see, is this idea of we don't really know what this is. We're pretty sure that it's going to have a pretty significant impact on our industry, or maybe even on our business individually, positive or negative. But we don't know, so what we're going to do is we're going to invite a bunch of people in, and we're going to ask them to talk to us about it. And maybe the whole audience isn't going to understand it, or maybe they're not even going to pay attention, but some of the folks in that audience are, and those are going to be the folks that help bring that institution to kind of the next step.
Patrick, I always learn so much when we chat every time. Thank you so much for making the time, sharing your advice with our leaders. We look forward to having you again in Sydney next time.
Pleasure. Thanks.
If you want to catch up on the chats we've had so far with some of the most interesting and valued executives in our ecosystem, visit sfdc.co/conversations. We are covering the ideas and concepts that are top of mind for executives and leaders within business to share, inspire, and help you connect with your customers in a whole new way. So far, we've covered AI to deliver limitless customer experiences, generative AI for sales teams, and so much more. Thank you for tuning into our Executive Conversations. See you next time.
And we have a family picture at the Washington Monument with the bushwhackers.
That's a Kodak.
It was pretty interesting. Yeah. It actually, in fact, it's a physical photo. Kodak is what it is. Yeah, it's not a digital photo. No. Later's better than anyway. It's hard to recreate.
Yes, the bushwhackers only comes out once.
I can't tell that story twice in 3 minutes.
Not with the same level of enthusiasm.
No, certainly not.